Alright, what's going on everyone? The release of Phyrexia All Will Be One is nearly upon us, and with it comes 2 new commander decks. The purpose of this video is to briefly go over the deck's core strategies so you can decide which deck is best for you. There's 100 cards per deck, so we don't have time to go over every individual card, but I will leave links to the complete deck lists in the description below. So let's start with Corrupting Influence, a green, white, and black deck with a toxic poison counter theme. If you aren't familiar with poison counters, creatures that have toxic or infect give poison counters when they damage people, and then if a player has 10 poison counters, they lose the game. So it sort of reduces everyone's life total from 40 to 10, but of course it can be a little bit more difficult to get those poison counters on. So the face commander is Ixhel, Scion of Atraxa, which is a 4-mana 2/5 with Flying, Vigilance, and Toxic 2. Then it has Corrupted, so corrupted abilities become active if a player has 3 or more poison counters. So in this case, at end of turn, each player that has 3 or more poison counters exiles the top card of their library face down. You can look at those and cast them and spend mana as though it were any color to cast them. So yeah, this is just about dishing out poison counters. The alternate commander is Viskraj the Doom Hive, a 5-mana 3/3 with Menace and Toxic 1. When it enters, it makes 3 1/1 mites with Toxic 1 that can't block, and then it will get +1/+1 for each poison counter your opponents have. So the interesting thing about both of these commanders is they care about poisoning everyone a little bit. Normally when you think of poison decks, they like to very aggressively target one player at a time. Like you'll target one player, try to get them to 10 poison, kill them off, then go to the next. But this one cares about getting everyone above 3 poison to get corrupted active, and then it's actually more value focused, like you see with Ixhel, where you're trying to get everyone up to 3 poison counters and then get tons of free cards, and that continues throughout the deck. So naturally there are a lot of creatures that can dish out poison counters like Plague Stinger, Viridian Corruptor, Ichor Rats. The first has flying, so it's hard to block, so easy to get poison counters on people. The Corruptor is really like an artifact removal spell, and Ichor Rats will give everyone a poison counter when it enters, and then it still has infect, right? So tons of stuff like this. These things are exciting, but the point is lots of stuff like this in the deck. And then there's lots of payoffs for corrupting people like Phyrexian Swarmlord, Phyrexia Outbreak, Geth's Summons. So the Swarmlord makes a 1/1 insect for every poison counter that each opponent has. So once again, this actually gets more powerful if you can spread the poison out, because if you kill someone with poison, you would actually get less tokens per turn. So this is, again, more about spreading poison wide and then getting value. The Outbreak gives everyone a poison counter, and then gives everyone's creatures -1/-1 for each poison counter they have. And Geth's Summons returns a creature from the graveyard to the battlefield, but then gets more powerful if everyone's corrupted, because it will also allow you to reanimate stuff from every person's graveyard that has 3 poison counters. So common theme here, you want to poison everyone a little bit, not necessarily kill everyone one by one. Another important aspect of this deck is proliferation, as we see with things like Blightbelly Rat, Norn's Choirmaster, Containment Grafter. So proliferate means when you proliferate, you choose any permanent or player that has a counter on it and you add an additional one, and that does count for poison counters. You can target a player and then give them an extra poison counter. So the rat has toxic and will proliferate to add more poison when it dies. The Choirmaster proliferates whenever you play or attack with your commander, and the Grafter proliferates whenever one or more creatures you control deals combat damage to one or more players. It also draws cards if your opponents are corrupted, so once again, you want to get everyone corrupted just a little bit and then draw a bunch of cards. And there is, of course, plenty more we don't have time to talk about. There is plenty of ramp in this deck, of course. There is plenty of removal. This deck is also kind of a prison deck, so there's lots of like don't attack me type of stuff. It's basically like poison everyone, sit behind a wall, and then reap the benefits of everyone being just a little bit corrupted. There's also plenty more ways to get poison counters. There's plenty more payoffs. Lots of stuff we don't have time to talk about, but basically, if you want to play a new kind of poison deck, a poison deck that's more about grinding value instead of being an aggro deck, then check out Corrupting Influence. Our second deck is Rebellion Rising, a red-white deck that cares about tokens and also equipment sort of. I'll explain that in a little bit, but first off, the face commander is Nayali Sun's Vanguard, a 4-mana 3/3 that gives attacking tokens double strike. It also says whenever you attack with one or more tokens, you can exile the top card of your library and play it this turn. And note that it does say play, not cast, so you will be able to play lands if you hit them. So yeah, just an aggro token commander that gives you extra cards. The alternate commander is Athari Sun's Glory, a 5-mana 3/3 with flying, lifelink, and haste that says when it attacks, and note when it attacks, it has haste, so it can attack right away. When it attacks, you get an experience counter, then it will make a 2/2 red rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. So that actually seems pretty powerful. It can attack right away with haste, it's hard to block with flying, and it just makes more and more tokens. So yeah, regardless of which commander you choose, expect to be going wide with tokens and turning them sideways. That's the idea. So unsurprisingly, a lot of creatures in this deck can make tokens. Things like a Myria Angel, Silver Wing Squadron, Mirror Battlesphere. The first makes a 1/1 whenever you play a land. The second has power and toughness equal to our creature count, and then it will make a 2/2 for each opponent we have when it attacks. So that's a potential for 3 tokens per turn. The Mirror Battlesphere enters, spits out 4 1/1s, and then can tap those to pump itself. There's also lots of spells that make tokens, you know, White Sun, Zenith, Finale of Glory, Increasing Devotion. The first 2 make X tokens. The Devotion will put 5 1/1s into play the first time you play it, and then 10 1/1s if you can flash it back from the graveyard. And there's plenty more too. There's artifacts and enchantments that make tokens, just lots and lots of ways to make lots and lots of tokens. And then you can pump those tokens with things like Prava of the Steel Legion, Intangible Virtue, Roar of Resistance. Prava gives them +1/+4, which is very relevant because it allows you to attack with your tokens without them dying in combat, or makes them harder to die in combat. Intangible Virtue pumps them up and gives them Vigilance, also relevant, so your tokens can stay back on defense. And the Roar of Resistance gives them haste, making the whole deck faster, and can also pump them up for extra damage. And naturally, this theme continues. This deck is very linear in that there's a lot of things that make tokens, there's a lot of things that pump tokens. There's not a lot of like frivolous kind of random weird stuff, except for one thing. Remember earlier that I said this deck has a sort of equipment theme? That's because it plays things like Kemba's Banner, Glimmerlens, and Hexplate Wallbreaker. These all have the keyword for Mirrodin, which means when you cast them, you make a 2/2 token and then attach the equipment to it. It's very similar to Living Weapon if you're familiar with those. So what makes these so great is you don't have to pay the equip cost to get the effect, and also that token is going to work with the rest of our stuff. It's going to work with all of our token strategies, but also it's a piece of equipment. And the equipment's pretty strong too. The banner will give the equipped creature +1/+1 for each other creature we control, which is a lot because we have tokens. The lens will let you draw when you attack with the equipped creature and at least one other. And the hex plate will pump the creature and give additional combat phases when you attack with the equipped creature. You get 1 per turn, of course. Your first combat phase, you get an additional 1. So yeah, that's all pretty good. There's even a new card that sort of bridges the gap between these two strategies with Gold Warden's Gambit, which is expensive, but it has affinity for equipment. So it will cost 1 less for each equipment you have, and then it makes 5 2/2s, so that's 10 power. It gives them haste, and then you can attach 1 piece of equipment to each token for free. When they enter, any equipment you have that's unequipped or equipped, whatever, you can just move over to a token with haste if you so choose. So that could be a pretty massive power swing. And yeah, there's many more token producers, there's some board wipes and stuff, of course, plenty of removal, all of that stuff. But basically, the idea of this deck is to go wide with tokens and pump them all up with lords and equipment. So that sounds fun to you? Be sure to check out Rebellion Rising. And that's going to be it for the Phyrexian Commander decks. Links in the description to the complete decks if you want to see every card. I'll also leave Amazon affiliate links, though as always I strongly discourage you from using those if you have a local game store to support. Be sure to let me know which deck you're most interested in the comments below. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.